Hello there. This is MD. Here with you on SaskiYano. Here we go again. We are in a new After Effects tutorial. In this tutorial, you will learn how to export your projects from After Effects. If you've been following along in the course, you will have just created this very handsome looking lower third. And now it's time to think about how you might use this in something else. Or maybe you've created something totally different and you want to export it from After Effects to something like YouTube, Facebook, or Vimeo. Not a problem. It's very easy. There's two things that you need to think about. The first is it going to be a final delivery type codec. That means, is your project going to go to the place where it's going to be displayed? Something like YouTube, Vimeo, Facebook, or maybe a client. In that case, it's probably going to be H.264. Or, are you going to render an element from After Effects and use it in a video editor? Maybe Premiere, maybe Resolve, maybe Avid, maybe Final Cut. That's going to use a different type of codec. Now technically, you can use H.264, but you shouldn't. There's a better type of codec called an intermediate codec. That's much higher quality. So first, let's look at doing that. Now in my comp here, I have selected this background layer here with the video clip as a guided layer. So that's not going to render. And essentially, this project is going to render out and look like this. Is going to have a transparent background. And then, my title's gonna render right where it is. So, to get this out of After Effects, I'm gonna come up here to Composition, add to Adobe Media Encoder. That's gonna send it over to Adobe Media Encoder. And by default, your comp is going to show up with the settings or the preset that you have the last used in Adobe Media Encoder. So for this example, I'm going to need to change that because H.264 is not going to work for me because it doesn't have an alpha channel. It's not great quality. Someone to change that. I'm gonna select the QuickTime format and I'm going to pick a preset that has an alpha channel. Something like Apple ProRes 4444 with alpha or GoPro Zen Form RGB 12-bit with alpha. Now the three most popular are Avid's DNX HD or DNX-HR Apple ProRes or GoPro Cine Form and a previous to CC 2019 version 13.0. To Apple, Progress has not been officially available for PC. There were ways to get your file encoded into Progress format, but it wasn't official. And now that it is, you have that option. Prior to this, I have been using GoPro Cine Form RGB 12-bit with alpha. But either one of these will work as long as it has an alpha channel. So, I'm gonna select GoPro Cine Form RGB 12-bit. I'm gonna select my destination for where I want this. I'm just gonna save it in this folder right here. Now normally if I am rendering this out to a project, I will create an After Effects renders folder. And then maybe more folders inside that folder with specific elements that I'm rendering out. But for now, I'm just gonna save it to the root directory of that folder there. And then press start. And that's gonna get to work. And it's going to render that lower third. Alright. So that's rendered out. And it's right here. And just to show you, if I pull this back into Adobe After Effects, it'll import, and I just want to show you. I'm gonna pull it down and make a new composition. And you can see, it renders exactly like we expected. It's got an alpha channel. The background is transparent. And so, if we leave this over footage in another video editing application, it would work just fine. Now if you're using something like Premiere, there's actually other ways to get your titles from After Effects into Premiere without rendering them out. But that's a little outside the scope of this tutorial. Alright. Let's look at another example. Let's say you've made something really cool in After Effects and you want to export it so that you can upload it to your YouTube, your Vimeo, your Facebook, or maybe you've created a whole project for a client and it's time to export it for your client. How are you going to do that? Well, it's gonna be the same procedure. But you're gonna be thinking about using a different codec because we don't need something that is super high bitrate. We want the standard kind of delivery codec. And in this point, that's going to be H.264. So, with this project selected, it doesn't have any alpha channel. I'm good to go with H.264. I'm gonna come up here to the menu, choose Add to Adobe Media Encoder, or use the keyboard shortcut Ctrl, Alt, M, and just like before, that gets added to EMME, which is the abbreviation for Adobe Media Encoder. It came in using the same settings that I used last time, but I want to change the format to H.264. When I do, I get a huge drop-down with all kinds of presets things. For example, if this was going to YouTube and my project was 1080, I would pick the high-quality 1080 Full HD. I choose the output file destination, or where I wanted that file to be saved. Then I hit the Start Queue button, and it would get to work. Now, if you are rendering for a client, and they have very specific requirements for your delivery, which I've experienced many times, you're going to want to jump into the Export Settings dialog box. And you can do that if you didn't catch that before. If you just click right here on the preset, that will open up the export settings. And then over here on the right side, you have a bunch of options. On the left side, you can set some things. Like you can set an in and out points. And you can use Adobe Media Encoder for things other than exporting from Adobe After Effects. But for right now, let's just focus here on the left side. With the format of H.264 selected, you can get in here and really customize a ton of options. So, underneath the video, we have lots of options. You can uncheck all of these things and change the resolution, change the frame rate, change the field order, all kinds of things here. I would guess that the things that you're probably going to have to look for, or things like the bitrate, specifically the target bitrate and the maximum bitrate, at least in my experience. If a client has any kind of requirements, they're probably going to be looking for a specific bitrate, or at least a minimum bitrate to hit. And that's just for the video side. There's a different section here for audio. In fact, audio has a codec. You can see, you can choose the audio codec, although it's very similar. AUC, and different flavors of AAC, whether it's stereo or mono, and then the bit rate for the audio. And there are more settings for you to explore in Publish, in Captions, and over here in the Effects tab. This can be helpful for clients sometimes to do something like put a name overlay, and you can enable this, and then you can put, let's say, the output file name. If I'm sending this to a client, I would probably put something like a version number after the file name, so I know which version it is, and then they'll know which version it is as well. I probably put it without the extension. I may put something like for approval and then reposition that. It may be helpful to throw a timecode overlay in as well. so that when your client is reviewing the footage, they have the actual time codes. They can get very specific about any changes or feedback. If you want, you can create a preset over here and save all the settings for future use. And that's pretty much that. It's pretty simple to get things out of Adobe After Effects using Adobe Media Encoder. Alright, that about wraps up this tutorial. Make sure to check out the other videos on our channel. And wait for more coming here on SaskiYano. And we will dive more and more into After Effects. Check that out. Coming up next here on SaskiYano. MD was with you for all tutorials of this course. See you soon. Finally, we are done for today. Don't forget to subscribe, like, share, and leave your comment down below in the comments section. Also, if you want to learn more, take a look at our first channel, Everything PS. See you next time. Bye.